Please be seated. We're going to begin the funeral services of Mrs. Elaine, Goodie Knobel. We welcome those of you who are watching online. For the people that are here, we do request that you be sure you keep your masks on, and please be sure that your cell phones have been turned off. Officiating this morning is Rabbi Andrea London, Rabbi Amy Memis Fuller, Cantor Kyle Kotler, Rabbi Lisa Green, and Rabbi Eleanor Smith.
As we gather together on this sad day to bid farewell to our Rebbetzin of 42 years, our beloved Elaine Knobel, we also come to celebrate her life. And if we don't laugh a little bit at some point today, Elaine, we know, would be upset. But we also know that nobody can make us laugh like Elaine did. She was one of a kind, irreverent, warm, a terrific human being. And we already miss her presence, but can feel her in this space as she was with us for these many years, loving us, caring for us, feeding us, and making us laugh. As we begin our service, we'd like to invite her granddaughter, Alana Knobel, to sing "You'll Never Be Alone" from Into the Woods.
Mother cannot guide you. Now you're on your own. Only me beside you. Still you're not alone. But no one is alone. Truly, no one is alone. Sometimes people leave you halfway through the wood. Others may deceive you. You decide what's good. You decide alone. But no one is alone. People make mistakes. Fathers, mothers, people make mistakes. Holding to their own. Thinking they're alone. Honor their mistakes. Everybody makes one another's terrible mistakes. You decide what's right. You decide what's good. Just remember, someone is on your side. Someone else is not. While you're seeing your side, maybe you forgot they are not alone. But no one is alone. Hard to see the light now. Just don't let it go. Things will come out right now. We can make it so. Someone is on your side. No one is alone.
It's clear who inherited Elaine's voice. Thank you, Alana. We'll continue with a poem.
I just want to offer my condolences to all of the family. Alana, that was so beautiful, and I think got to all of our hearts. So Elaine, I'm thinking of you as I share these words by Rabbi Joel Ozeron. And the child asked, "Tell me of life." And the sage answered, "Life, my child, is a mystery. We do not ask to be born, nor do we even understand the meaning of birth, of creation. We grow and we experience life's pleasures and pains. We love, and slowly, oh so slowly, we come to realize that we have become, that we are. At that moment, we humble ourselves before the mystery of life and quietly say, though I knew not, I have been granted the most precious gift of all, the gift of life." And the child asked, "Tell me of death." And the sage answered, "Death, my child, is a mystery. It is the inevitable return of the gift of life, the gift which came free to us. We live as the trustee of that mysterious being, of that unexplainable becoming. Yes, you and I are but the trustees of life. We nurture it, we delight in it, we give it of others. And at the appointed time, we sadly, yet with pride, return it from whence it came. The beauty, my child, is that what we are, what we have become, remains long after the gift has been returned. It remains as a precious keepsake with our loved ones who live on.
Now I'd like to invite Rabbi Eleanor Smith to speak.
Good morning. As a rabbi, I always cringed a little inside when a family would respond to the death of a loved one by saying reflexively, "Now she is with her mother. Now he is with his beloved wife." I guess I cringed a little because what I saw of death seemed to define that kind of comforting, simple math, the uniting of lost pairs across the great divide between this world and the next. I like the way that our High Holy Day prayer book calls death a land without report. But when I heard last week of the death of my dear friend Elaine, my heart went right where my cumbersome theology could not easily go, to the thought, the hope, that relief that Peter had met his bride at the door and that they were together again. We all know Peter and Elaine were amazing life partners. We all fancied ourselves their friends, and we were, but it was also true, and Peter said it to me more than once, that within their partnership, they had everything that they ever needed, each other and their beautiful family. They were a giant, soft leather catcher's mitt of a couple, holding generations of congregants, colleagues, friends, and family with their shared tenderness, perceptiveness, generosity, joy, and love. If you ever went to a dinner party at their home, you would see that sweet ballet in action, from the planning of the elaborate meal and wines to the gracious serving and clearing of the many courses on beautiful dishes, to Peter happily finishing the last of the kitchen chores as he lovingly shooed Elaine to bed. They each had dominion in their realm, but they were co-pilots in the fullest sense. It was a joy to be around them. I always admired Elaine as much as I loved her. She was so real, a kind of real that I believe is also quite rare. She was always true to herself, and she tried not to do that at the cost of others. She was smart in so many ways. Peter may have been the guy with the more degrees, but Elaine was every kind of smart. She was also strong in the face of both illness and loss. I was in my residency at Evanston Hospital when she had a major health event and was in the hospital for many days. I saw her every day, usually more than once, for all the ways that she was profoundly affected by this terrible event. In the depressing, depersonalizing environment of the hospital and then rehab, she fought to regain herself. She made jokes. She always asked, "How are you?" She did not despair, and truly extraordinarily, she recovered. We spent a lot of time together in the past 2.5 years since Peter died, and she moved through her loss with a realness and a dignity that never dimmed, even though she mourned Peter deeply, utterly, and had every reason to withdraw. She was deeply grateful to the women who cared for her. She knew them and their people and their stories, and she called her cup full. Beyond words, she adored you, her children and grandchildren. We ran the full roster of every single one every time we were together. One night, not that long ago, we sat outside at the Bonefish Grill on the sidewalk in the cold, because of COVID, of course. I covered her in blankets from my car. I noticed that she was wearing her wedding ring around her neck, and I asked her about it. She said, "Well, I'm not married anymore, and I would like to meet someone. I'm lonely." I was speechless. And then we reviewed the eligible bachelors that we knew in her zip code and in the Beth Emet directory. I offered to make some calls. She said, "No, they will come to me." And on the way home, I was moved to understand what a testimony this was to the quality of the great, deep love she had shared with Peter, and the abiding way that she knew what she needed and was willing to open her broken heart to it. The El Male asks that the soul of the one who has died be bound up in the bonds of eternal life. I know she is woven into me, and I bet every one of you, and we are the richer for the privilege of together carrying her spirit and her light.
Now I'd like to invite Rabbi Lisa Green to speak.
We read in Psalm 90, the very end, "May the grace of God be upon us and establish the work of our hands upon us." Establish the work of our hands. The work of our hands, of course, can mean many things. To me, it is what and who we have created in our lives. Our families and relationships, the work of our labor, the sacred meals we have created, and so much more. To stand on this bima this morning and to look out is to see the work of Elaine's hands. She would tell us it was Elaine and Peter's hands, but I'm going to say Elaine's hands in this moment. It is to see you, the family she adored, hugged with those hands, spoke her mind to while she was hugging, and supported loyally with every ounce of her being. It is to see you, the sacred community of Beth Emet, whether you are in the room or live stream or in the generations before, that she was so proudly a part of for so many decades. Yes, at Peter's side, but in her own right, and no one messed with her on that. In her own official, unofficial, but oh so clear role, that of her own determining the work of her hands. To see the work of Elaine's hands is to see in our mind's eye the baked goods and incredible meals and beautiful tables she set. All were sacred, nourishing, was a sacred act of love. To see the work of Elaine's hands is to see the lines traversing the map where she and Peter traveled across the globe, and too where she facilitated the travel of so many of us in her work as a travel agent. To see the work of Elaine's hands is to see the fierce determination with which she lived and fought illness. To see the work of Elaine's hands is to see the friendships and relationships she built and nurtured. To see the high standards. She raised her hands high despite her small height. Those high standards with which she challenged us all. I may stand here with the title rabbi, but truly I stand here as part of one of those incredible friendships. I knew Elaine my entire life. But it wasn't until I moved to Chicago in 1995 that I really knew her. After I arrived and she made Jeremy schlep to Lakeview all the stuff my sister had left in Elaine and Peter's basement after getting her degree at Kellogg, after she told me it would happen, it would be done, I then saw that though I had arrived here and had no family and only a small number of friends, that I had family here. The Knobel Green family friendship stretches back to 1959, and today is in its fourth generation. A friendship which began with a young Peter and slightly older Betty and Barry, my parents, and grew. Jeremy sent me an image yesterday of Peter and Elaine's wedding, my father's face peeking out from behind as he had just officiated with the other clergy of B'nai Jeshurun in Newark. Somehow that felt just right. Peter and Elaine walking down the aisle from the chuppah, Dad's face peering protectively and knowingly over Elaine and Peter. He started that, but then they did it for each other. And Elaine and Peter did that for me for these 26 plus years. Whenever I saw her, Elaine would greet me with joy and a knowing glance and an opinion if there was one to be given. There usually was. It might have been here at Beth Emet for a special event, or at North Shore Congregation Israel when she came to Gvel and mark High Holy Days, especially of late when Stephen would be reading Torah. Or when she showed up at our door before my kids' B'nai Mitzvah to make sure they had the yad from Elaine and Peter, which to read Torah. She looked out on my professional and my personal life and joined us for simchas and for challenging times. I called, she told me what she thought. And she and Peter were present for my highs and lows. They were family and history. I am ever grateful. Jeremy, Seth, Alyssa, Leah, Alana, Heather, Stephen, Lily, and Oliver, Judy and Tom, Howard and Janet, to all of you. I am here to continue the work of Elaine's hands, that green, noble friendship, and to continue a powerful legacy of presence and really good baked goods through the generations of our families. Elaine's memory is a blessing I honor each day, beginning today, but really before. I see her warmth, I hear her laughter, I hear her frank words. Zichrona Livracha, her memory is for a blessing indeed.
Adonai roi lo echsar binot sheyarbitzeni al mei menuchot yenahaleini Nafshi yeshovev, yeshovev, yancheni b'magle tzedek, yancheni b'magle tzedek, leman shemo. Gam ki elech begets amavet lo irara ki ata imadi shivtecha umishantecha hema yenachamu Ta'aroch lefanai, shulchan neged sorerai, dishanta vashemen roshi, kosi revaya. Ach tov chesed yirdefuni kol yamechaya shavti beveit Adonai leorech yamim Adonai roi lo echsar Adonai roi lo echsar
We're going to now hear from members of the family who will reflect on Elaine's life. We're going to begin with the grandkids and all of us who are here in the sanctuary or joining us remotely know how important and special those grandkids were to Elaine. Grandma Goodie was the best, and as Alyssa said to me the other day, she was born to be a grandma. So I'm first going to invite Leah, Alana, Oliver, and Lily to join us on the bima to share some words about Grandma Goodie.
I have to say this was extremely hard to write, and not because we didn't have anything to say. We're nobles, we always have something to say, but because Grandma Goodie was someone you could not put into words. How do you describe someone who commanded every space, lit up any room she walked into, and connected with every person she met? She is joy, she is humor, and she is grandma.
As it was just mentioned, she was definitely meant to be a grandma, and every grandchild had their own special time with her growing up. That Leigh and I would go over to her house after school or on the weekends and just play, and she always had those snacks, those little cheese Ritz crackers were always waiting with us in her pocketbook. And as she showed all of you, her love was shown through food. And I think we all have our fondest memories of her when we were cooking in her kitchen, standing on a stool and mixing something delicious in the mixer. Of course, she would then proceed to lick the spoon with her perfectly painted red nail and pass us the spatula to take a lick ourselves. An apron on our tiny little bodies and chocolate all over our faces were some of the best memories.
Recently, Alana and I had our VHS home videos transferred to digital files. And over the past month, we've been watching videos of us as babies and seen how Grandma was with us, how she encouraged us to move our tiny bodies, and something else, hold on. Use our words and explore the world around us. She continued to do this for the rest of her life. When I wanted to study in Israel in high school and Italy in college, she made sure that I was able to. When Alana showed an interest in theater, she came to every performance. When Lily started swimming, Grandma wanted an update after every race. And when Oliver ever asked for something, she immediately went out and got it for him. Every recital, showcase, basketball, softball game, swim meet she could attend, she was there.
Unfortunately, Oliver and I didn't grow up in Chicago long enough to have vivid memories of growing up with Grandma. Being several thousand miles away from her, I wasn't able to see her face to face, so I had to enjoy the luxuries of being her granddaughter over the phone. I loved calling her on my walk home from school. It made me feel so special the way her voice lit up when she found out it was me calling. Grandma always seemed so excited to speak to me. She made me feel like the most intriguing person in the world because of how much interest she took in my life. Grandma Goodie was a dazzling woman, grandmother, and baker. She brought baked goods with her everywhere she went, even to her nail salon. The last time I got to see her was in Florida, and she took me to get my nails done. The way those wonderful women talked about Grandma made my heart light up. They spoke so highly of her and her baking. They absolutely adored her. Everyone knew who she was and the fudge she brought to the table. One of my absolute favorite treats of hers was her Oreo cheesecake. It quite literally changed my life for the better. I used to not really be much of a cheesecake person, but as soon as I took the first bite of that cheesecake, I could have sworn every taste bud in my mouth started singing. Whenever I needed a recipe for anything, Grandma had it for me.
The lady never changed herself for others. She was always 100% Elaine Knobel. She also liked consistency, and every year on her birthday, we would gather as a family, have a very non-kosher meal of lobster and eclairs, and the entire family surrounding her, singing happy birthday and posing on the yellow couch for the annual picture. Lately, someone has always been missing, and we would be sure to FaceTime them in to strike a pose. She made sure that no one was left out.
It isn't often in our lives that we come across someone so special that the person stays with us forever. Grandma was that person. And with that being said, to my father, my siblings, my cousins, my aunt and uncle, what we inherited from Grandma cannot be damaged, destroyed, or lost. It is permanent, and it keeps her from becoming just a wonderful memory. It allows her to remain alive and alive through us. There have been and will be times in our lives when we will want to speak with her, to be with her, and ask her for guidance. And my hope is that in those times, we can lean on each other in the way we leaned on her. And in those times, she might not seem so far away. And so now to you, Grandma. There is no lobster or eclairs at this party, but it is still yours. I'm beyond happy that you reunited with Papa and have someone to hold your purse and your hand again. We miss you tremendously here, but know that you're exactly where you need to be. Give Papa a big hug from all of us, and we can't wait to see you again.
Now I'd like to invite her grandchildren, Stephen and Heather, to speak.
Grandma Goodie was the epitome of the Jewish grandmother. So much so that I'm surprised we didn't call her Bubby, but I personally think Goodie is much more fitting. When I was a little girl, Grandma Goodie was sharp as a tack, quick-witted, and always looking for an adventure, maybe to the symphony, some type of cruise that could take her around the world, or the nail salon to get rhinestones on her red-polished toes. As time went on, she started to slow down. Instead of baking brownies or fudge on a Wednesday after preschool or playing in the sand up at Michigan, we would sit on the back porch and I would tell her about all of the great things happening in my life, and I would listen to her stories from her childhood as we both sipped on a can of Grandma Goodie seltzer. We rarely did anything but sit and talk, but one thing never changed as we both grew older. Grandma Goodie always knew how to drive us crazy. Like I said, she was the epitome of the Jewish grandmother. Are you eating enough? Are you dating? Is he Jewish? I can only hear Papa chiming in now to say, Elaine, enough. One of my most favorite memories of Grandma Goodie was when I was about 4 or 5 years old. She took me to a cooking class. It must have been winter time because we were supposed to make gingerbread houses. I say we were supposed to because instead of building it, Grandma let me eat all of the ingredients and she got us in trouble. To this day, it still makes me smile. She was certainly unconventional. Grandma Goodie took great pride in being the rabbi's wife. For those of you who have been to the house for one of Grandma and Papa's infamous family dinner parties, or you've seen the progression of our family couch pictures, you would know that the living room couches are bright yellow. Why, you ask? That is a question I have been asking myself for as long as I can remember. A few years ago, Mom and I went to have a Hanukkah feast with Grandma while Papa went for boys' night out steak dinner with Dad and Stephen. Grandma was showing us the new fabric she picked out to recover the couches. Of course, they were yellow. She proceeded to tell us that they got a great discount on the fabric. I said, well, yeah, you got a discount because they're yellow. Very matter-of-factly, she responded, no, because Papa is the rabbi. Okay, Grandma. Sure, if you really think so. Being one of the grandchildren felt so special. As much as she loved being the rabbi's wife, her grandchildren were her most prized possession. She made everything about us, and she made sure we had everything we ever wanted or needed, always offering to take us shopping for clothes, shoes, or strange gadgets we definitely didn't need, taking us out to amazing lunches and dinners to our favorite restaurants no matter what we wanted. And yes, I asked Grandma and Papa to take me to Red Lobster for my 12th birthday so I could eat Kraft mac and cheese. She always kept chips in the coat closet for when we were hungry, but I'm sure they were expired if Mom didn't have a chance to get to them before the kids did. And she was such a good sport when I cheated at Candyland because she loved seeing how excited I was to win. Grandma was always dressed for a party, a full face of makeup, dazzled in her finest collection of jewelry, and some sort of colorful outfit to make the biggest statement in the room. For a little lady, she made quite the entrance. She loved giving love, but she also loved being loved. Her birthday was her favorite party of the year. We always told her we loved her, but it was a day she heard it from people beyond the family. I wish Grandma could see for herself how much love she is receiving today. If I didn't know any better, I would say her funeral is her best party yet. I will forever miss yelling through the mail slot at the front door to see if anyone was home, walking with Papa down the hallway in the morning to bring Grandma a cup of coffee filled to the brim, and seeing her red lipstick smile light up a room. It brings me great comfort to know that even at this sad time, Grandma is resting peacefully with Papa. Grandma, if you are listening, I think I can speak for the whole family. When I ask you to please tell him how much we love and miss him, please give him a hug and kiss for all of us and know that I am eternally grateful to have had such exceptional grandparents like you. I miss you already, Grandma. Remember, I will always be your cookie girl, and I love you more.
I think it's only fitting, in the words of Grandma Goodie, to ask, I hope everyone's having a party. Towards the end of her life, my grandma had two big wishes. She wanted her annual lobster birthday extravaganza, and she wanted to snowbird down to Florida. So let's take a look back at late June, early July. It was a typical hot summer day, and if you made your way to my grandmother's house, you would find her surrounded by family, wearing a cone party hat, you know, one of those paper ones, and she was in a lobster bib. As one big family, we gathered around the table eating freshly cooked lobster, I know, very kosher, and celebrated Grandma Goodie. I've never seen a woman so happy by the sight of family and celebration. What I remember most about that day is not the lobster we ate or the smile on her face, but my grandma's digital camera. Little did I know that would be the last day my grandma ever took a picture of me. Since I was a baby, my grandma always carried around a camera with her. She took pictures of us wherever we went, from family gatherings and nice restaurants to vacations and my personal favorite, Johnny Rockets. Grandma Goodie would pick me up from preschool and take 4-year-old me out to eat. Johnny Rockets was her go-to place. In true grandmother fashion, she always let me order a dessert in the form of a root beer float. Every time, without fail, she would pull her digital camera out of her pocketbook and snap a photo of me in a Johnny Rockets paper hat. For those that don't know, over the past 4 years, I've anchored my school's daily video announcements and developed a passion for being on camera. The more I think about it, the more I realize that my passion began with my grandma's digital camera. She was the first person to ever point the lens in my direction, and while we never did see the thousands of photos that were housed on that camera, hopefully Alana can develop some of them in the future, it sparked something inside of me that will last forever and continue to develop into personal aspirations. In September, my grandma packed her things and made the trip down to Florida. One of her favorite activities was sitting on the porch, taking in the warm weather, and eating a fresh bowl of strawberries or maybe drinking a cold glass of Grandma Goodie seltzer. Before she left for Florida, my dad and I would join her in this activity. On the first Saturday of each month, we drove to Evanston to visit. Every time I came over, my grandma would sit in her chair on the porch, proudly sporting her pajamas, iconic red lipstick, and about a pound's worth of jewelry. It was an eclectic look, but she made it work. Eventually, one day I said, "Grandma, why are you wearing makeup and jewelry, but also still in your pajamas?" Her response, "Well, your father said you were coming over." Presentable was one of the many adjectives one could use to describe my Grandma Goodie. As you may have already heard, my grandma always wanted to make sure everyone was having a party, and she was always dressed for one too. I believe if we truly are to honor my Grandma Goodie, then today should not be a day of sadness, but rather a day of celebration. Grandma, you always called me the king, but we all know you were the queen. Rest easy. I love you.
And now I'd like to invite Seth to speak.
So, first of all, I'm bringing this bear up here. You might have seen Oliver have it. When my father passed, Alyssa got some of my dad's pajamas, clean of course, and had these bears made for all the grandchildren. And then when she saw all the grandchildren have it, she wanted one for her own, and I believe this is the one that she had. So, when my kids aren't staying at my house, I steal Oliver's to sleep, so I always have Papa with me. So I was told that I only had 3 to 5 minutes to speak, and it seems like other people took the liberty to make sure that I didn't speak long, to make sure that I was appropriate as possible during my mother's funeral. So I will do my best. I want to start out by saying that I do not want to diminish anything that Alyssa or all of her grandchildren have done for my mom, but I need to thank my brother. When our father passed in 2019, he instantly stepped up as the new patriarch of the family. Many know that my mother had my father as his caregiver toward many years of his life. But when he died, Jeremy stepped into that role, taking care of all of her medical care, hiring people to be with her 24 hours a day, checking her mail, paying her bills, and basically taking such amazing care of her. And I will be forever grateful. Okay. So, first of all, Mom, you got me to wear a tie again. I'm hoping this might be the last time, but you did a good job there. So let me talk a little bit about my mom. My mom was very creative. When I was a child, she used to make birthday cakes, homemade birthday cakes that were just absolutely incredible. But then she also used to make these Halloween costumes, and she made, starting out, these bunny costumes for Jeremy and I to wear. And they were really cute, and the pictures are really cute. But to say that my mother never threw anything out, and that she always reused things, the next year when we grew out of those bunny outfits, we were karate bunnies by wearing the karate gis and the bunny hats. And I bet you they're still in the basement, to be honest with you. But one year she made this beautiful costume for me for Halloween. She took a box and then set it up as a table, with a tablecloth. It was beautiful, beautiful setup. Painted my face orange, as a pumpkin, and, put this box on me. The problem was the box was too big, and I was probably about 8 years old, so my arms didn't, get out of the box. So Jeremy had to hold all my candy bag whenever we went trick-or-treating, and somehow he had 3 times more than I had in candy. I'm not quite sure how that happened. And the last costume that I remember my mom making for me was I was a barf bag. So I think that the time, she just painted me green, put me in, garbage bag, and that was sent me on my way. So there's two sides to every person. So that's one side of my mother that I wanted to share. The other side is a little known fact that my mother tried to kill my father, my brother, and I. Now, some of you are getting a little concerned that I'm going to be inappropriate, but I am not. I'm going to tell you about my dad's, I think it was his 65th birthday. 60th? 60th. My mom sent my brother, my father, and I to Moab, Utah to do this whitewater rafting trip. Great bonding experience. Well, you fly into Salt Lake City, you get on a 10-seater airplane. They tell you, okay, you have to sit here and you sit there so that the plane is weighted balanced. If I remember correctly, I sat on one side, the other 9 people sat on the other. We got it. But the first part of the trip was a Hummer ride up the mountains, and I re-looked it up, and the trail that we took was called Hell's Revenge Trail. Now let me read the description, since there is no photographic proof, because all 3 of us experienced pure terror on this first part of the trip. I will use my hands to demonstrate the ride. So Moab 4x4 Hummer tours. Somehow my mother saw this, read this, and said, wow, this is a great idea to send my loving husband and my 2 children on a trip. So access Moab's spectacular backcountry in style and comfort aboard the world's most serious 4x4. Professional guides operate custom Hummer vehicles with raised seating in the rear for optimum passenger viewing. Our Hummers can climb to the top of seldom seen and awe-inspiring Moab overlooks. Return with a new feeling of freedom and unforgettable memories. Well, believe me, that was one of the scariest trips of our life. I think the 3 of us had like a collective panic attack. And because this thing was literally riding up the mountainside like that. So anyways, the last part of the trip that was planned, she did plan this whitewater rafting during a period of time in Moab that was supposed to be gentle, like class 1, class 2. It's like you're, enjoying a nice ride, in a lazy river. Unfortunately, the week or 2 before, they had some unprecedented rain that happened, and we then went from class 1, 2s to class 5 and 5 pluses. So to say that it was going to be a gentle ride, I'm not quite sure. But at one point, Dad actually fell into the water. Jeremy, with his Spider-Man lightning speed, grabbed him. And as he yanked him back into the boat, did you crack his ribs? Pull his shoulder out? Injure him somehow? Are you sure? Okay, different time. Anyways, to finish this trip off, this beautiful bonding experience, we had to fly back on that 10-seater, and they had to jumpstart the plane in order for it to work. So she was mom. What can I tell you? And she loved everybody that she came in contact with. So, anyways, thank you.
Now I'd like to invite Jeremy to speak.
Before I start, want everybody to know that if you were expecting this elegant, spiritual, and extremely intelligent message, an overall perfect written sermon of the late Rabbi Peter Knobel, or the witty, funny, and perfectly timed comedic relief of Elaine Knobel, that's just not me. I'm all over the place. Nothing ties together. I don't think my high school English teacher would be pleased, but that's just how I do it. My goal of today's eulogy is for this not to be the longest funeral in history. Unfortunately, we did that one already. I can't promise this will not be the second longest. Thank you for all for coming today. As you know, it's been a rough couple of years for not just the Knobel family, but the entire Beth Emet family. Our family appreciates all the love and support we have received over the years, so thank you. I want to give my wife a heartfelt thank you. None of this could have happened and gone smoothly without you. You're a doer. Your love and support is much needed and appreciated. I love you. Also to my children, Stephen and Heather, you always know the right thing to say and not to say. And I'm glad to have you on my side to get through this. Family was the most important thing to Grandma and Grandpa. That tradition continues with us. Everybody knows the love story. Boy meets girl, they have 2 sons. Those boys meet girls. Between the 2 of them, they have 6 children. Well, I'm going to tell you the greatest love story that has ever been told, at least the abbreviated version, and in typical format, I will go off topic as well. There's a saying that everyone is familiar with. Behind every great man, there's a great woman. Well, we all know my father, Rabbi Peter S. Knobel, was the greatest man to ever live. I'm a little biased. Elaine Goodie Knobel was that woman, and this is her love story. On July 1st, 1944, Mildred Stickler gave birth to a beautiful, healthy girl, Elaine Marilyn Stickler. What some people don't know about my mother's birth father died in World War II. This was a rough time for Mildred and Elaine. However, they were surrounded by lots of family and love, raised by not only her mother, a strong woman in her own right, but her 2 aunts and grandparents. As Elaine grew up, as the story is told, there was this wonderful family that lived above them, the Goodman family. Elaine used to wander upstairs, typically to say hello, and that was where the first man love of her life lived, Mickey Goodman. Mickey and Mildred eventually married, and Mickey officially adopted Elaine to raise her as his own. Over the years, the family grew into her sister Judy and her brother Howard. She grew up in a large family with aunts and uncles and lots of cousins. They were a very close-knit family. Elaine was the oldest, and she was treated like a queen, not only by the family, but as rumors have it, the boys were very fond of her as well. Mom used to tell me in front of Dad that she had a lot of boyfriends, and that, as you might imagine, she was the it girl in high school. My parents met at a summer camp. They were both camp counselors. At first, my mom didn't want to have anything to do with my dad. I love my dad, but he was no Don Juan when he was younger. Eventually, he won her over, and as Mom likes to say, he has potential. As you know, with the love and support of my mom, my father was able to grow into a great rabbi. I was talking to one of my mom's first cousins, and the story goes at Mom and Dad's wedding, the 4 male cousins and 1 brother took Dad to the side and put their fists in his face and said, "Elaine is a very special to us. If you do not treat her like the queen she is, you'll be threatened with bodily harm." I might have exaggerated in the queen part, but I think that is what my dad heard. So Queen Elaine was crowned. My father doted on her. Whatever she wanted, she got, especially jewelry. He loved to buy her lots and lots of jewelry and artwork. I know this is getting long, and I can hear my mom saying, "Jem, wrap it up." But it's hard to wrap it up when you have so much to say, but I will try to do that. Mom's love of travel, singing, symphony. Dad usually took great naps at the symphony. A good party, good food, and most of all, family. Everyone that met her fell in love with her. She was kind, funny, witty, an amazing cook. At least that's what people tell me about her cooking. Everything she made was with onions. And if you know anything about me, I hate onions. That was one of the only frustrations she had with me. She wanted me to love her cooking so much. Sorry, Mom. But if you've ever been to one of the dinner parties, you know what I'm talking about. They were legendary. She loved me and my brother so much. Most of all, she loved her grandchildren. The love between her and the grandchildren was so strong. I'm very lucky to have a mom that loved me unconditionally. I always wanted to make her proud, and when my father passed, the true love of her life, I would visit her a couple times a week, speak to her once or twice a day, clean up her emails daily, fix something in the house, pay the bills, give the grandchildren gas money. Don't worry, you're still getting gas money. Order her something from Amazon, and the list goes on. Life is short and never too late to call your mother. Do it every day. Mom always wanted the best for her kids. She never wanted us to be cheated on anything we deserved. I can remember my freshman year of high school, I played water polo. I was terrible. I would just sink. My brother, myself, and my mom went to this rewards dinner where they gave out JV and varsity letters. I was on JV. As they finished out giving the varsity letters, they asked, did I miss anyone? My mom, in a loud voice, would say, yes, you forgot my son Jeremy. Mom, stop, I'm on JV. She could be embarrassing, but she did not want us to be left out. My parents met Alyssa for the first time only a few weeks after dating. My niece, Leah, was born. I called my brother and I said, I want to come to the hospital and I want to bring a friend of mine who wants to give a bunch of baby stuff. Alyssa worked for an ad agency and her client repped by a baby line of products. I said I wanted to make sure Mom and Dad were not there. I was not really ready to introduce them to anybody yet. As we were getting ready to leave the hospital, you guessed it, my parents walked in. And of course, they were excited to meet the first grandchild, but my mom wanted to know who this pretty girl in this fancy camel coat is. In true form, she was overly curious, and she would not let Alyssa and I leave. She is drilling us with questions. More Alyssa, but you have to love my father. When Mom went too far, always with good intentions, Dad would say, Elaine, enough! And she would then stop. Alyssa knew how important family was to my mom and made sure that she was always included in our family plans, especially after Dad passed. She helped to make sure my mom was living her best life. My mom loved spending time with Stephen and Heather, always asking about them and how they're doing. As you can imagine, the last couple of years without my dad was extremely difficult for her. I can't thank her two amazing caregivers, Nadia and Vera, enough. As much as the rest of the family was here for her, it could never replace my dad. As many of you know, I was extremely against my mom going to Florida. As most of you know, she had underlying health issues, and so maybe I was being a little bit selfish that I wanted to spend more time with her than I could. I caved. I told her that as long as one of the caregivers would take her down there, I would support it. Originally, I was sad that I couldn't be there due to COVID at the end. But when Vera told me how happy she was in Florida, she was more active there, going to the beach, the pool, seeing friends and family. It gave me a smile knowing she really was living her best life. As you know, any good story, there needs to be an ending and tying things together. In any good marriage, there's give and take. It's a shared partnership, great communication. Do not sweat the little things. Do not go to bed mad. My father and mother practiced what they preached. Mom and Dad had a great marriage. They did it up. They left no regrets. And most of all, they did it together. You have to agree that is truly a great love story. Mom, I miss you. Your laugh, your smile, your wit. Now you're with Dad. He has his job back to hold your purse. Your one true love. I love you more. Love your butchy boy.
Thank you for all those beautiful, poignant, heartfelt words. I first met Elaine 22 years ago. And where did I meet her? In the Knobel home. The perfect place to meet Elaine Knobel. Her hospitality, her warmth, her humor, all coming out in that initial meeting when I was interviewing for the job here at Beth Emet. But Elaine, of course, as she always could do, put everyone at ease, the consummate hostess and amazing cook. Now we might think that the home was Elaine's domain and the synagogue was Peter's. But all of us who knew and loved them know that that was not the case, that they shared both the home and the synagogue, that their partnership that we've heard so much about, where they shared responsibilities and also talents. Peter and Elaine's home was a wonderful, warm place to be. Good food, excellent wine, engaging conversation, a perfectly set table. But the synagogue here was also their shared space. As we know, Elaine edited his sermons. He would tell me that they weren't ready to go until Elaine had thoroughly reviewed them and cut them in half. Elaine was his harshest critic and his strongest ally. They were quite a partnership. And he would only give those high holiday sermons after Elaine had weighed in. But Elaine was not ever behind the scenes here at Beth Emet. She was comfortable in front of a crowd, had impeccable comedic timing. You never wanted to speak after Elaine because she brought the house down. She said at Peter's funeral that she promised that she would write her own eulogy so he wouldn't have to sum up her life. We've done the best we could, Elaine. Not nearly as good as you would have done it, but we hope that you can feel the love that we have for you. And I loved how Peter never felt upstaged by Elaine because he got so much enjoyment from her, how funny and bright and talented she was. Even when it came to wine, we know that Peter was considered to be the connoisseur, but he told me, you know, Andrea, Elaine actually has a better palate than I do. And the congregational trips that they led together to Israel, Cuba, Germany, and points beyond, that Elaine, of course, as a travel agent organized, but it was more than that. She cared for everyone on those trips. She brought the fun. Elaine was the glue. We've heard about Elaine being an amazing baker and sweet maker. She was named Goodie, not just because her maiden name was Goodman, but we knew her for her legendary treats, as did all of her doctors, her dentists, her hairdressers, the nail salon people. Lily, as you spoke about that Oreo cheesecake, I could taste it. No one could make a cheesecake like Elaine Knobel. Last summer, when we were making a video for the High Holy Days, we invited Elaine to come and act in it. What would be a video without Elaine? And she baked cookies for the cast. The last time I saw Elaine was last fall, right before she left for Florida. We went and had lunch together at California Pizza Kitchen, and she left me, of course, with a jar of hot fudge sauce. Elaine was always thinking about others. At Beth Emet, we like to think of Elaine as ours. Our Rebbetzin for 42 years. What will we do on the high holidays when she's not lighting the candles for us and singing with her beautiful voice, telling her stories and sharing her jokes? We're always going to see the chair right out there with Elaine sitting in it, signaling to Peter when his sermons had gone on too long. So many stories that people shared with me. One that I found was particularly funny is one year on the High Holy Days, when it came time for Peter to give his sermon, instead of sitting in the sanctuary, she decided to go into the library where she found some of the boys sitting, and they were playing cards. And she said, "Deal me in, boys. I've heard this sermon 8 times already." But as much as we like to think of Elaine as ours, all of us know that she was yours, the Knobel family. Howard and Judy, Janet and Tom, the many nieces and nephews, Seth, Jeremy, Alyssa, those who called her Grandma Goodie, Leah, Alana, Heather, Stephen, Lily, and Oliver. You were the light of her life. She got so much pride, love, and enjoyment. As Rabbi Smith spoke about, every time we would get together, we'd have to go through everybody and see how they were doing and what was going on in their lives. The last time I spoke to Elaine was on Peter's birthday on January 13th. I called, and we had a nice long chat about what was going on down in Florida, how much she enjoyed being with everyone who was able to come in December, the family, how Judy, you were about to show up and spend time with her, and all the gossip, of course, of all the rabbis and congregations that were down there. Peter and Elaine, they were an amazing pair, sharing this space as their home on the hospitality of their home on Avers. It was really hard to be there the other night without them. But as I looked around the living room with those yellow couches and the jack in the pulpit and all the pictures of the grandkids, her presence was still so palpable. Elaine's love will live long after, as all of us who knew and loved her will continue to get a smile as she comes out with some sharp and funny comment, hands us a cookie, asks us how we are. After the shooting in Pittsburgh, Peter spoke here on the Bima, and the words that he spoke were so moving to all of us, and to Barb Wertico, our amazing accompanist, that she wrote a song based on his word called Love Conquers Hate. It's how Peter and Elaine lived their life, their love affair, their tremendous love and affection that they had for family, everyone they encountered, and this community. And it seemed only fitting that we should play that song at this moment for the love that we enjoyed of Elaine Knobel when she was alive, and the love we feel in our hearts at this moment.
Every single day, our hearts are filled with sadness. Tell me, have we seen enough to make us change our ways? How will we change the hearts and minds in these troubling times? Are words no longer good enough? Let tomorrow be a brand new day when we all stand together and proudly proclaim, I believe that love can conquer hate. I believe that love can conquer hate. I believe compassion can conquer cruelty. I believe that those who sow in tears can reap in joy. Let us learn to speak with words of love and kindness, even if we meet someone with whom we disagree. Each time we send our thoughts and prayers leaves me empty inside. I believe it's time to say enough. Let tomorrow be a brand new day when we all stand together and loudly proclaim, I believe that love can conquer hate. I believe that love can conquer hate. I believe compassion can conquer cruelty. I believe that those who sow in tears can reap in joy. I believe that love can conquer hate.
To invite those who are able to please rise for our prayer of mourning. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamrumim, Hamatzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei HaShechina, Im Kedoshim Utehorim, Kezohar Harakia, Mazirim et Nishmat, Yentel Mindel Bat Meir Mildred, Shehalcha Leolama, Bal Harachamim, Yastired ha-beseter knafav le'ulamim, ve'yitzror b'yitzror ha'chayim et nishmata, Adonai hu nachalata, v'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava v'nomar amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant a perfect rest under the shelter of your wings to our beloved Elaine, who enters eternity. God of mercy, let her find refuge in the shadow of your wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. Be her inheritance. May she rest with you in peace. And together we all say, Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, the interment service will continue at Memorial Park Cemetery in Skokie. For those of you who will be driving in the procession will be forming in the parking lot. Please obtain an orange safety funeral sticker to place on the right-hand side of your windshield. Have your bright lights and hazard lights on at all times. For additional measures of safety, we will be providing a car in the back of the procession to hopefully keep other cars from entering the procession. And for your own personal safety, I strongly recommend using a horn liberally as you're going through the intersections. Please do not speak or text on your cellular phone while driving to a cemetery. The Shiva will be here at 7 p.m. at Beth Emet from 7 to 9 p.m. Memorial contributions to the Beth Emet, the Free Synagogue, would be appreciated. And for those of you who are watching online, that information is on our website. At this time, I invite everyone to please rise and stand in place as the pallbearers come forward and as we escort the casket of Elaine Goodie Knobel, her family, and the clergy here on the bema from the chapel. Then you may return to your cars.